And what I would say is it's unlikely you're going to do the same work for the rest of your life. But what I would advocate for is to know what you really want to contribute towards. And that be sort of your anchor or your, gives you a direction of where you're going to go. And it can be, I call it your contribution. So what are you here to do in the world? What are you giving back to the world? What are you creating in the world? And I think that we spend very little time thinking about that in our education system. It's more about acquiring skills and expertise and very little about who you are, the experiences that you've had in your life and that have shaped you and what you really care to contribute.
This is Get Unstuck Podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs who prioritize their life first, business second. I'm Mudita Panmuk, your host, who dedicates my life to designing and building a business that supports lifestyle. We will learn together from entrepreneurs around the world how they overcome their life challenges, their business obstacles, and yet still get unstuck from the hamster wheel of burying themselves into their business. Because time is the number one commodity in the world that you cannot get back once it's gone. So let's shorten the learning curve and see how can we prioritize better. Let's get unstuck. 2, 1. Hi, Get Unstuck Nation. How do you consider to spending time on this earth? That's a question that very broad, right? But the majority of your time potentially spending on working on what you are doing, like 9 to 5 or building your business. So our guest today, Georgina Enthoven, after getting her master in business administration from Harvard Business School, her purposeful career journey has transcended numerous continents, and she has authors work that's worth it and promises to pivotal resources to individuals seeking to design their career to work for them and the world. You will see more today in this episode. Today's episode is something that very meaningful because we are really going to talk about the real cost of meaningful work. So without further ado, please welcome Georgie to Get Unstuck Podcast today. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, your work is so powerful. I'm like, not many people really talk in depth about work career fulfillment the way that you do. So I'm really honored to have you on the show today.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's a pleasure. The average career is 90,000 hours. So that's a huge amount of your time here in this earth, and especially in your adulthood. And so getting the direction right of how you spend those 90,000 hours is really something worth investing in.
I know, right? And you never know what tomorrow brings even. So that's better plan today. So Before we get there, at least, can you give me a little bit background of what inspired you to get into the work career fulfillment topics or area even?
Yeah, well, I would have considered myself, and graduating from undergraduate many years ago, ambitious, and I really wanted to. I had this, vision of changing the world and really being involved in work that was impactful. And I graduated from UC Berkeley and was living in San Francisco after. And I found it really hard to find a job that had impact at the time that met my ambition. And so quite quickly, I ended up getting funneled into the tech industry because technology was really booming. And I started on the corporate ladder, working my way up. But I felt unfulfilled on a personal, deeper level. And so I started trying to find ways to substitute my work with things on the side that felt more impactful. So initially what I started doing is teaching, volunteering as a teacher in a low-income school. And so I thought, okay, well, then that'll give my life some more meaning. In the meantime, I'm earning well in my tech job and gaining valuable skills. And what I found is that I started zigzagging. So I would find a job that was great for income and ambition, and then I would feel that it wasn't fulfilling, and then I would switch to something way more impactful. And then in those jobs, I felt really aligned on cause, but often not fully aligned on what am I receiving for all this work that I'm doing, and how is that going to be sustainable? And so I just found that this narrative of that you've got to pick income or impact really tricky for me, because I wanted both. And I didn't see role models that were doing this. And so I thought that I needed to choose one or the other. And so my real desire to do this work is to show people that they don't have to choose. There's a growing industry of companies that are doing amazing things in the world, and looking for the most ambitious young and middle-aged employees, and it's, there are places where you can feel really great about your work, but also match your ambition and income requirements.
You mentioned about income and impact. So I know that many people are struggling about that. Like they're starting to feel like, oh, maybe the first day, okay, they feel nice to work here, but then like, oh, this is not fulfilling me again. So how can we? Well, it's gonna be hard to start feeling sure that this is going to be right for us, right? But how can we figure it out, at least like middle ground?
Yeah, I mean, well, what I'll say is on campuses still today, they're still recruiting. The choices are, would you like to work for a not-for-profit, or would you like to do banking or consulting or tech or something? And they're very, very far apart. And it's been many years since I experienced it, but we have the same, we're asking young people today to still make those same choices. And I think the most important thing to know is that you can use the word and instead of or. So it can be income and impact. And when you're able to find a job that feels good for you and good for the world, you become what I call a disruptor for good, where you have the energy to keep going for the 90,000 hours and to invest in something and leave a real mark on the world, but not in a way that is you're self-sacrificing. So you feel really empowered and excited to be doing what you're doing.
So not satisfied while working. Are there a type of worker you mean? Because like each person work differently, right?
Yeah. What do you mean by not satisfied? Explain more.
Let's say, I don't know, when we work. Yeah, that's a good question. Let me think. I don't think much when I work because I don't feel like working. That's how I feel satisfied. That would be my answer though. I'm not sure that's good enough.
Is what you're saying, you just go and decide you're going to get it done and it's work, and that you go onto autopilot?
I would say that the time that I discover that this is the type that is okay, I'm sorry, I'm just keep rambling, but this is going to be the work that I'm going to work for the rest of my life, is what I can kick into my flow state very easily. Okay,
Yeah.
that would be my answer.
Yeah. I think that's great.
Me
and
satisfy.
Yeah. And what I would say is it's unlikely you're going to do the same work for the rest of your life. But what I would advocate for is to know what you really want to contribute towards. And that be sort of your anchor, or your, gives you a direction of where you're going to go. And it can be, I call it your contribution. So what are you here to do in the world? What are you giving back to the world? What are you creating in the world? And I think that we spend very little time thinking about that in our education system. It's more about acquiring skills and expertise, and very little about who you are, the experiences that you've had in your life and that have shaped you, and what you really care to contribute. And I find that people who are most excited about the work that they do every day are people who are firmly anchored in a contribution, or knowing what I would say is your personal mission. They have a very clear personal mission. And I can give you some examples of some of the people that I have worked with and interviewed for. I have written a book and other things. So one is going to end or reverse diabetes reverse diabetes and obesity in 1 billion people. Wow. That is somebody's mission. So every day they wake up and that is what they're there to do. Or end homelessness in my generation. Very specific. That's every day you know what you're going to do. And what's interesting about that is when you have something that you can clearly define, that is what connects all the opportunities that you have for your work, people know you as that person and they come to you for the work that you're doing, and they say, wait, I've got this amazing resource, you have to meet this person, or you create this momentum around you when you are like have a really clear definition. And when you're doing really good work, doors open for you. Not that you don't ever experience hurdles, but people are rooting for you and really want to make it work. So it's, you create this upward spiral for good.
How can people discover that specific mission of their lifetime then?
Well, that's a great question. And I think there's probably a lot of truths, but here's what I found with working with people is the first thing you have to know is, I believe you build it or maybe even uncover it from within already versus land upon it one day. Like you're not going to get struck by lightning and one day you know your purpose. That happens to very few people. Chances are it's something that you have to decide you're going to invest in, and you start figuring it out by asking yourself different questions. But when I work with people who've never done any of this work before, sometimes it's hard to commit to something specific like end homelessness in my generation. But maybe you can commit to one word. Maybe you can commit to woman or climate or regenerative farming. Maybe there's something specific, or even two words like sustainability in Mexico. Something that is, okay, now that is your focus. And for the next few years, how do you incorporate that into your life? How do you bring that into your current job or find something else to do that you can gain deeper knowledge and contribute towards something that you care about? But you start getting experience and you start knowing what you're working towards. But eventually when you are on those paths, you start to find your exact niche of exactly what you want to be doing, because you really start to see where your capabilities, which I would say your advantages, like where do you really stand out, overlap with your interests of what you want to contribute towards. And it starts to align after you invest time, but it takes time and it takes a lot of awareness and intentionality.
It takes time and a lot of awareness with intentionality. So do you think this type of mission changed towards we are growing up, or like the more experience we have in life? Like,
yeah, I mean, in
sense of life, let's say.
Yeah, yes and no. I will say a lot of the people that I have worked with from a coaching standpoint knew what they really cared about early on in the world, and they were talked out of it. And so they said, don't focus on that. You're not going to make any money. Don't focus on that. Like focus on some hard skills, like become an engineer or become a banker or something really specific. And so they listened to that advice, got pretty off track, then climbed the wrong ladders, got, somewhat advanced in their career and just felt kind of empty. And I call this person the uninspired achiever. Like they really want to be contributing to something greater, but they put all that on hold to conform to what we think that a career needs to include, which is more one-dimensional. Is it going to pay you sufficiently?
If we want to do something greater, you just mentioned that, how can we start thinking bigger then?
Yeah, I think it's this work on contribution. Like, I do think you really need to find things you care about. And I have yet to meet somebody who doesn't care about anything. Like, everybody cares about something. Like, sometimes it's, life has been tough and you have dealt with a family member with cancer. Maybe that's what is something that, really you want to help solve. Or maybe it's something that is like more beautiful in the sense of like you want to bring joy to people's lives. So maybe it's not coming from a trauma or something difficult. It's coming from something beautiful you want to create. It doesn't matter. It's just something that resonates with you, that brings you energy. Like when you're doing it, you feel inspired and hopeful and excited and passionate about it. And it's something that you can be talking about for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It's not going to be something that in a year's time you are bored of and not interested in. It's something that makes the world better. It's, I think it also aligns with your capabilities. So like, for instance, you may have had a certain perspective growing up. You may have grown up in a particular neighborhood or a particular climate or a certain patriarchal culture that you felt strongly that you wanted to see something different. And those perspectives add they add fuel to your fire of where your passions lie.
What about working for others and working for yourself?
Well, I think you can do it either way. I have not seen it to be one or the other. I do think if you work for yourself, you can really curate exactly what the mission is, and you're completely aligned with that mission. But I also think you can figure out how to include your personal mission in any job. Like they would say, any job is a climate job. You don't have to be in a lab measuring condensation on a beaker to have a climate job. You're working in your particular office and you're paying attention to sustainability, right? So it doesn't matter if you're working for yourself or someone else.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Like, what inspires people to career change? I myself, I don't know, I know that you watched some of my episodes, but I also a lawyer. I'm still doing legal firm though, but like it's a
Okay.
part of the consulting, but I'm graduate lawyer. But
Congratulations.
I didn't turn to be a consultant, but I just do that both thing at the same time. Yeah. And it's actually, I use it every day. I didn't like separate it from what I do at all. It didn't change the mission that I do. And I see it incorporated, like exactly what you say. But it's not easy. Like it's been 10 years already, like since the day that I graduated. So yeah, it took time to like, I think it's a seed that planted since the day that you decided to go to that route since like high school, that okay, this is what I'm gonna go for, like planted that seed, and then what's next it's not gonna happen over time. But I see many people that okay, I graduate this, but I do totally different things but still on the same mission though. What inspired them to do that?
What inspired? Well, I think it's unrealistic to think to stay in the same job. There's difference from a job and a personal mission. So your personal mission is sort of what connects all the pieces together. And sometimes it doesn't actually make sense until later. And you say, yes, I really am able to combine my legal background with my consulting background, with my desire for podcasting. And they all make me particularly unique, because sometimes it's also contrasting skills, like somebody who's an engineer but also very creative, or an artist that's really good at finance as well. And so sometimes you have these overlaps that are particularly interesting, and that's where the magic happens. And that's where sort of your genius lies.
You talked to me about the type of workers.
Yeah.
Can you share to our audience about that? That's kind of interests me, like how people get burned out, how can they feel empowered? Yeah. Can you share?
Through coaching hundreds of people, one of the things that I am, one of my strengths is I start to recognize patterns. And I noticed that there's really 4 different buckets of workers. And I would preface it with, you determine where you are in this, and people move. So probably in our lifetime of a career, we've been in all 4 buckets probably at some point. But the first one I'll say is the replaceable employee. So that's somebody who's usually getting an hourly wage. And let's say you're working for an hourly wage at Amazon, and they can fire you easily. It's like they give you 2 weeks notice. You're fitting a very particular profile to fit into a job. You're not bringing like your expertise and talents and imagination to your work. You're just fitting their checklist of what they need done for the day. And what I experience of people who are in those kinds of jobs, that they often know they're in that job because they start to feel resentment. They're not being paid really well. They're not contributing to something meaningful. They're having a hard time connecting with a bigger picture, something that's more meaningful to them. And it feels quite transactional. And those people sometimes choose to have those jobs. And sometimes you need to have those jobs. So no judgment on that. I think most of us have been in those jobs at some point. But it can feel that you're leaving a lot of your potential on the table. So that's the first one. And the first one I would say is the replaceable employee. The second one that we can talk about is what I call the uninspired achiever. And this is the person who's super ambitious, gets themselves on the fast track. Maybe a lot of your classmates at law school or in banking or consulting, and they are very driven on what they're earning and the title that they're getting and working their way up this fast career ladder and this sort of narrow funnel for success. And those people, not always, but sometimes what they feel is regret. So they get maybe to the top of the ladder, and the conversations that I have with those folks say, they say things like, I wish my work had more meaning, but I can't get off the ladder now because my expenses are now so high. I've got kids, got mortgages to pay, putting kids through school. So I'm now stuck. But I really don't find pleasure in what I do. I'm good at it, but I'm not feeling connected to something bigger. And so those are the uninspired achiever. Across from that is what I would call the unrewarded do-gooder. And this is the person who's taken the opposite strategy. They've just said, maybe they have a goal in mind of I'll only work for a not-for-profit, or they're very, very dedicated to giving enormous amounts of themselves in their work. Maybe people pleasers, people who are incredibly generous, like the terms that you hear, at least in the US, is like give more than you take, or those kinds of things. And so these people often, that conditioning is more female driven, but it's not necessarily. But those people are burning out, and they feel it because they're just not receiving enough for all the good work that they're doing. And those people is like where my heart aches mostly, because we really need more of those people in C-suites and boardrooms in Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, making all these amazing decisions, starting businesses, because these are the people with really good hearts. But we keep them small by them earning only a little bit, and also not having a bigger platform, a bigger stage, and running big companies. So that's the unrewarded do-gooder. And then the last category is, which I would say is most inspiring, is the well-rewarded disruptor. And so that's somebody who is job is doing great for themselves. Like they're stimulated. They like the people they're working with, the community that they're involved in. They're earning enough income, but also they're working with role models and changing the world the way they want to. And they're very satisfied on the contribution they're making in the world. And so it's interesting, but to be a disruptor is somebody who cares about the environment, or somebody who cares about any particular minority group, or it's strange that that's the disruptor, but it's the rebels. It's the people who are the activists who want to change and make the world better.
And we keep changing. Yeah. Once you explain it like this, I can see that we keep changing, depends on the season of life.
Yeah. And there's different jobs, and sometimes you may say, for example, let's say I have a client who's a social impact investor. At some point they needed to work at an investment bank that they felt more like the uninspired achiever to get the right skills to do what they do now. So I think it's really important that you're the person holding you're not looking to others of what you're doing, if it's good or not good for the world. I think you really need to take a longer view. The career is 90,000 hours. What is the contribution you want to make? And you are the person keeping yourself aligned and in check, but you're not looking to others to do so, because really nobody wants to be the impact police. I don't want to be it. And I don't think I don't think that's a good job and a good use of your time. I think, each of us individually hold that responsibility.
I want to ask you something that I know that you have met Nelson Mandela and Jane Goodall in person. How does it feel to meet them in person?
Yeah.
I would be checking.
Yeah, both those two people, I found to be extraordinary. I grew up in South Africa for my first 11 years. And so Nelson Mandela, obviously iconic worldwide, but to a South African, he really was magnificent. And I met him, I must have been maybe 28, 29. And I was with my sister, and we were like out on a farm, and he was staying somewhere close with some other people close by. And we were able to go on a boat ride with him to look at wildlife. And he said that we could take a picture with him. He said, okay, you come and take a picture with me, but here's the deal. You've got to come back and marry South African men. And so it wasn't the case. I did not marry a South African man, but I did marry somebody from an emerging market. My husband's from Mexico, so maybe that's okay. But he had a really great sense of humor, and but always rooting for South Africa. Like he was South Africa's biggest advocate.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, very charismatic man.
Yeah. What about Jane Goodall?
Yeah. Jane Goodall, I met her at a conference, and I mean, she's just so extraordinary. I mean, she's like over 90, and she's still advocating for the contribution that she cares about in the world. She does not miss a minute. And she's sort of my iconic disruptor for good. I think she's extraordinary. And I think when she looks back on her career, it's so exciting and interesting. And she's so, she can feel so at peace and proud of the contribution she's made in the world, versus somebody who's just climbed the corporate ladder and been the uninspired achiever and maybe made lots of money, and then what, right? And so I just think that she is extraordinary.
Yeah, she looks so steady.
Yeah, I think she's very she has spent time understanding what she wants out of life, and she is delivering for herself.
Sometimes we need to pause to go further, right?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, just think about that, just like right now. Just thinking about her, and then like she has never changed in any press, any media. I have seen her, like she looks exactly the same.
Yeah, she is, and she's always very focused. So one of the things that I have noticed, especially if you're somebody who wants to do a lot of good in the world, is it can be tempting to do lots of good everywhere, but that dilutes your focus. And so another reason I just really admire Jane Goodall is her focus has been really clear to her, and is clear to others. So I'm sure she would advocate for education and for all sorts of things, but she stays in her lane to have the most impact in that space.
Clear for her is to clear for others. Okay, we have a lot of quotes today. Like we have a lot of good stuff Let's talk about work that's worth it. So what is this book about? Like what do you share with the readers?
Well, Work That's Worth It is my forthcoming book, and so it's soon to be published in April, which I'm really excited. But it is a book that I have written to inspire people to have a career that has a significant impact, and also compensates you well for that contribution that you're making. And so it's part inspiration, and I interview all sorts of people from different career journeys that are what I call disruptors for good. And also I have a lot of background story of how I got, how I have pieced together what I call the 7 C's, which are different foundation aspects of your career, but then exercises as well of, if you want to figure out your contribution, what are the exercises that you need to get started to do that work? So,
we have touched some of that part earlier. So if anyone missed that part, go rewatch it.
Yeah.
So it could be about self-discovery as well, right?
Yeah, it's a lot about self-discovery. It's, investing in who you are and where your magic lies, and being authentically yourself so that you can have a far greater impact on the outside.
This is so powerful because, it's gonna take time to know more about yourself and what is your mission, so that you can feel more fulfilled in your career and your work life, so that you can make more impact to the world. In
Yeah.
case anyone want to work with you or follow you or get your book, I mean,
Yeah.
into the wait list, where can they
Yeah.
find you then?
Probably the two easiest places is I have a podcast out called Work That's Worth It. And on that podcast, I interview all sorts of people who are what I call disruptors for good, or being able to navigate that income and impact space, and from all different industries, all different parts of the world. And so the goal of that is to really show people that there are so many options of how people are doing this. And sometimes we feel that that doesn't exist, but that is really my passion, to show people that there's lots of different pathways. And secondly, if you are wanting to follow on and join a community of people who really believe in being a disruptor for good, find me on Instagram at Georgina Enthoven, and I'll spell it because my name on there can be confusing, but it's GeorgiEnthoven, and that's the handle. And yeah, I would love to see you there. And you feel free to let me know what you thought about this podcast that we're on together. And I think those are probably the two easiest places to find me.
So I'll make sure that those are mentioned around here in the description as well as in the show notes. So everyone check it out. I know that you will definitely find your work that's worth it, and also help you find the fulfillment for your life and also impact the world. So thank you so much, Georgie, to being a guest on Get Unstuck Podcast today.
Oh, well, it's been such a pleasure to be here. And I know we could talk for ages, but I've appreciated the time with you. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Appreciate you likewise.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope this episode inspires you wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey, so that you can have your business that supports your lifestyle. Get a show note at getunstuckmethod.com/podcast. Review what we have learned together today and start implementing right now. See it by yourself. The result of your consistent action are worth it. You deserve the freedom to enjoy your life. Until the next episode, let's get unstuck.